I smiled and applauded as my boss introduced the company's newest operations manager. The only problem? That was supposed to be my job. Some people simply have leadership in their DNA. My director, Michael, announced proudly as everyone in the conference room clapped. Ethan has proven that in only 4 months. For months. I had spent 6 years building the department he was now being asked to lead. Still, I kept smiling. I even stood up to shake Ethan's hand. Congratulations, I said sincerely. He looked uncomfortable. Thanks, Olivia. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this. I know. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something else, but Michael had already wrapped an arm around his shoulders, steering him toward the front of the room while the rest of the team gathered around for pictures. I quietly picked up my coffee and walked back to my desk. No scene. No argument. No tears. Just silence. Nobody realized that I had already made my decision before the meeting even ended. 6 years earlier, I had joined Brightcore Logistics as a junior operations analyst. Back then the company had fewer than 80 employees. Everyone knew everyone. The CEO occasionally walked through the office asking about weekend plans. Managers worked alongside their teams instead of hiding behind office doors. It wasn't perfect, but it felt honest. I loved solving problems. Delayed shipments. Broken reporting systems. Warehouse scheduling conflicts. If something was falling apart, I usually volunteered to fix it. Over time, my responsibilities grew naturally. New hires came to me for training. Department heads asked for my opinion before launching new projects. Even managers from other divisions stopped by my desk when they couldn't figure something out. Nobody officially promoted me. My title barely changed. But my workload certainly did. Whenever I asked Michael about career progression, he always gave me the same reassuring smile. You're exactly where I need you right now. First, I took it as a compliment. Eventually, I realized it meant something very different. During my 5th year, our operations manager resigned unexpectedly. The position became available. Several coworkers encouraged me to apply. You've basically been doing that job already, my friend Hannah told me over lunch. I know. So why do you look worried? I stirred my soup slowly. Because Michael hasn't actually asked me. She frowned. He doesn't need to ask. Maybe. But don't you think it's strange? The truth was, it was strange. Every major operational decision already came through me. I approved vendor schedules. I redesigned inventory workflows. I coordinated between finance, customer support, and warehouse teams whenever something went wrong. People naturally assumed I would become the next manager, including me. Then Michael called me into his office. I've got good news, he said. I honestly thought this was it. Instead, he smiled. I need you to help interview candidates. I blinked. You want me to interview people for the role? You know the department better than anyone. That should have been my first warning. Over the next month, I interviewed 12 applicants. Some lacked experience. Others had impressive resumes but clearly didn't understand how our systems actually worked. After every interview, Michael would ask my opinion. I gave detailed notes. Strengths, weaknesses, potential risks. At the end of each conversation, he'd nod thoughtfully. Exactly why I value your judgment. Every time he said that, I believed I was one step closer. Then one Monday morning, HR announced that the company had hired someone externally. His name was Ethan Brooks. 32 years old. Smart. Confident. Excellent communication skills. He had managed a small regional team at another logistics company, but had never worked at Brightcore before. Michael introduced him personally. This is Ethan. Olivia will get you up to speed. Of course, I became his trainer. To be fair, Ethan wasn't arrogant. He admitted on his first day that he had a lot to learn. I've managed people, he said while taking notes beside me, but your software looks completely different. It is. I'll probably ask a million questions. That's better than pretending you know everything. He laughed. I think we're going to get along. And we did. Over the following months, I taught him everything. How our warehouse management system worked, which suppliers constantly missed deadlines, which customers required special handling, how quarterly forecasting actually functioned, What reports senior leadership cared about. Even the tiny unwritten rules that no employee handbook ever mentioned. He learned quickly. I respected that. But every important decision still landed on my desk first. Ethan would often lean over the divider between our workstations. Olivia, can you check this before I send it to Michael? Or, does this process usually cause delays? Or, how would you handle this client? Sometimes I'd spend an hour explaining situations that had taken me years to understand. He always thanked me. He even joked one afternoon, I should probably split my paycheck with you. I laughed. If you tell payroll, let me know. Neither of us realized how true that joke would become. 3 months later, the company landed its biggest client in nearly a decade. Everything depended on a flawless rollout. Michael gathered the department. This project is our highest priority. Then he looked directly at me. Olivia, I want you coordinating everything. For the next 6 weeks, my life became work. I arrived before sunrise. I stayed long after sunset. I canceled weekend plans. I skipped family dinners. Not because anyone forced me, because failure wasn't an option. Whenever another department hit a roadblock, they called me. Warehouse delays. Olivia. Software issue. Olivia. Vendor negotiations. Olivia. Customer escalation. Olivia. By launch week, I was averaging 12-hour days. Nobody complained. Everyone knew how much was riding on it. Especially Michael. One evening around 8:30, I walked past his office carrying another stack of reports. He looked up. You should head home. I just need to finish tomorrow's deployment schedule. He smiled. That's exactly why you're going to do great here. I paused. What do you mean? He leaned back in his chair. Just trust me. Those 2 words stayed with me. Just trust me. I did. That turned out to be the biggest mistake of my career. The launch went better than anyone expected. By Friday afternoon, our biggest client had officially gone live without a single major issue. No shipping delays. No system outages. No missed deadlines. For an operations department, that was almost unheard of. The entire office felt lighter. People were laughing again. Someone even ordered pizza for the team. Around 4 o'clock, Michael walked across the department with a huge smile. Conference room in 10 minutes, everyone. Excited conversations immediately started. This has to be about bonuses. I heard the CEO is coming. They're probably announcing the new management structure. I wasn't trying to get my hopes up, but after everything that had happened over the past 6 weeks, it felt reasonable. The conference room filled quickly. Our executive team stood near the presentation screen while employees found seats. Michael cleared his throat. I've been with Brightcore for almost 12 years. He paused dramatically. And I've never seen an operations team perform at this level. Everyone applauded. Takes leadership to deliver results like these. My heartbeat accelerated. He looked directly toward Ethan. I'd like everyone to congratulate our new operations manager. The room erupted with applause. For a second, I honestly thought I had misunderstood. Then Ethan slowly stood up. His face showed almost as much surprise as mine. Michael handed him a folder. Effective immediately. I felt completely numb. People around me started congratulating Ethan while I remained frozen in my chair. He glanced toward me. There was hesitation in his eyes. Almost guilt. After the meeting, Michael stopped beside my desk. You've got a minute? I followed him into his office. He closed the door. I know you're disappointed. I stared at him. Disappointed? I know you wanted the position. I thought I had earned it. You have. His answer caught me off guard. I have? Absolutely. Then why wasn't I promoted? Michael folded his hands on the desk. You make this department work. I don't understand. If I move you into management, who's going to do everything you already do? For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked quietly, So, I wasn't promoted because I'm too valuable? That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. He sighed. Olivia, leadership isn't only about titles. I almost laughed. Apparently. You'll continue leading projects. I already do. You'll mentor staff. I already do. You'll work directly with executives. I already do. He shifted uncomfortably. We'll revisit compensation during annual reviews. There it was. Another promise. Another vague future. No timeline. No commitment. Just more waiting. I walked back to my desk feeling strangely calm. The anger never came. Instead, something inside me simply switched off. For 6 years I had believed hard work eventually spoke for itself. Now I understood something far more important. Hard work only matters if someone chooses to recognize it. Otherwise, it simply becomes an expectation. That evening Ethan caught me in the parking garage. Olivia. I stopped. He looked genuinely uncomfortable. I wanted to talk. About what? The promotion. I nodded. What about it? I didn't know. I believe you. I honestly thought you weren't interested. I smiled sadly. Really? Michael told me you turned it down twice. I stared at him. What? He said you preferred staying in a technical role. For the first time all day, I felt actual anger. I never said that. His expression changed immediately. You didn't? No. Silence. Ethan looked toward the floor. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I feel like I walked into something I didn't understand. You did. He rubbed the back of his neck. If I'd known, you still would have accepted. He hesitated. Probably. I don't blame you. And I meant it. Anyone ambitious would have accepted. The problem wasn't Ethan. The problem was the story he'd been told. That weekend I did something I hadn't done in years. I updated my resume. At first it felt almost disloyal. Brightcore had been my professional home for so long that looking elsewhere seemed wrong. But every achievement I added reminded me how much responsibility I'd actually carried. Designed operational reporting system. Reduced delivery delays by 23%. Led enterprise client implementation. Created company-wide training program. Mentored 14 employees. Managed cross-functional projects. Coordinated emergency logistics during supply chain disruptions. By the time I finished reading it, I had one question. Why was I still an operations specialist? Monday morning brought another surprise. Michael announced that Ethan would officially begin managing the department immediately. I expect everyone to support him. The meeting ended. People returned to work. About 20 minutes later, Ethan appeared beside my desk carrying a notebook. I looked up. I need your help. I couldn't help smiling. With what? Michael wants a complete operational transition plan. Okay. I have absolutely no idea where to start. Of course he didn't. Because no transition plan existed. I had always handled everything myself. He lowered his voice. Can we go through your weekly process? My weekly process? Yeah. The reports. The vendor meetings. The forecasting. The client escalations. The compliance reviews. The inventory balancing. The executive summaries. The staffing forecasts. The monthly audits. The warehouse scorecards. He kept writing. After nearly 5 minutes he stopped. Wait. He looked at the page. You do all of this? I do. He blinked. I thought these responsibilities were split between 4 or 5 people. I smiled politely. So did everyone else. That afternoon Michael asked me to join another meeting. I need you to spend the next few weeks helping Ethan settle into the role. I looked at him carefully. You want me to train my new manager? It's only temporary. Like everything else? He frowned. What does that mean? It means every promise you've made over the last 3 years has been temporary. That's unfair. No. I stood. What's unfair is expecting me to keep doing management work while someone else gets the title. His expression hardened. Careful, Olivia. I met his eyes. No. I said quietly. I think you've mistaken professionalism for unlimited patience. Without waiting for permission, I walked out of his office. For the first time since joining Brightcore, I stopped volunteering. I completed exactly what my job description required. Nothing more. No staying late. No fixing problems that belong to other departments. No answering emails after work. No unpaid leadership. By Wednesday afternoon, the cracks had already begun to show. And this time, I wasn't rushing to cover them. For years, people had assumed I was simply efficient. They never realized I had quietly become the safety net for the entire operations department. Whenever something went wrong, someone would message me. I answered. Whenever a deadline was in danger, I stayed late. Whenever another team fell behind, I stepped in. Not because anyone asked, but as I cared. Now, for the first time in 6 years, I stopped doing work that wasn't actually mine. The effect was immediate. Thursday morning started with 3 urgent emails. The first came from finance. Subject: missing monthly forecast. Normally, I prepared the report before anyone even asked. This time I simply replied. The operations manager should be coordinating department forecasting moving forward. 5 minutes later, Ethan appeared beside my desk. Did you get finance's email? I did. They said you usually prepare everything. I used to. He looked confused. Can you show me where the files are? Of course. I spent 5 minutes explaining where the data lived. Nothing more. When he asked me to build the presentation, I smiled. I think that's part of your new role. He nodded slowly. Right. An hour later, customer success called. One of our largest retail clients wanted changes to their weekly shipping schedule. Normally, I handled those conversations because I knew every detail of their account. Instead, customer success transferred the call to Ethan. I overheard pieces of the conversation. I'll need to get back to you. I'll check with my team. I'm still learning the account. The client sounded polite, but not impressed. By lunchtime, Michael had already walked across the department 4 different times. He kept stopping beside Ethan's desk. Everything okay? Need anything? How's the transition going? Each time Ethan gave the same answer. I'm working through it. He wasn't lying. He really was trying. But there was simply too much institutional knowledge that no document could replace. Friday afternoon brought our weekly executive meeting. Normally I attended because I prepared every operational performance report. This time I stayed at my desk. 20 minutes later, Michael stepped out of the conference room. Olivia. I looked up. Can I see you? His voice was tight. Inside the small meeting room, he closed the door. Where's the dashboard? What dashboard? The executive dashboard. I didn't prepare one. Why not? Nobody asked me to. You always prepare it. I know. He stared at me. The executives are waiting. I remained calm. I'm sure Ethan has everything under control. His jaw tightened. Don't do this. Do what? You know exactly what I mean. I completed every responsibility listed in my job description this week. That's not enough. I tilted my head. It has been for my salary. Neither of us spoke. Finally, he exhaled. Can you put something together quickly? I could. But then nothing changes. When I returned to my desk, Hannah spun around in her chair. What happened? Nothing. Michael looked like he was about to explode. I smiled. He's discovering how much invisible work actually existed. She laughed quietly. I've been waiting years for this. The following Monday, the problems became impossible to ignore. Our weekly operations meeting lasted almost 2 hours instead of 45 minutes. Questions kept piling up. Who owns vendor compliance now? Who updates warehouse capacity reports? Who approves emergency shipping requests? Who maintains customer performance metrics? Everyone automatically looked at me. Out of habit, I simply looked toward Ethan. He noticed. To his credit, he didn't panic. He opened his notebook and started assigning follow-up tasks. The meeting eventually ended. After everyone left, Ethan walked over. I owe you an apology. For what? I thought this job was mostly managing people. And now? He gave a tired laugh. Now I think you've been doing 3 jobs. Probably. He leaned against my desk. Can I ask you something honestly? Sure. Why didn't you leave earlier? The question surprised me. I thought for a moment. Because I believed loyalty would eventually be rewarded. And now? I've realized loyalty without respect is just convenience. He nodded slowly. Think you're right. That evening as I packed my laptop, my phone vibrated. The message came from someone whose name I hadn't seen in almost a year. Daniel Harper, former vice president of operations. Daniel had resigned the previous summer after repeatedly disagreeing with Michael about staffing and long-term planning. We had always worked well together. His message was short. Still at Brightcore? I smiled. For now. Almost immediately he replied. Can we talk? We met the next evening at a quiet coffee shop across town. Daniel looked exactly the same. Relaxed. Confident. Much happier than he ever had at Brightcore. After catching up for a few minutes, he got straight to the point. I heard they promoted someone else. I raised an eyebrow. News travels fast. The logistics industry is smaller than people think. I laughed. Apparently. He took a sip of coffee. I wasn't surprised. You weren't. No. Michael never wanted to promote you. That sentence landed harder than I expected. What do you mean? He sighed. We argued about it more than once. I stared at him. He actually said it? Daniel nodded. His exact words were. He paused, remembering. If Olivia moves into management, I'll need to hire 2 people to replace everything she already does. I looked down at my coffee. So I was trapped. You became too reliable. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, Daniel leaned forward. I've started consulting for a growing supply chain software company. I looked up. They're expanding fast. They need someone to build an operations division from scratch. My heart skipped. I immediately thought of you. I didn't answer. Instead, I asked the only question that mattered. What kind of role? Daniel smiled. Director of Operations. For the first time in weeks. I felt excited instead of disappointed. And for the first time since joining Brightcore, I realized my future might exist somewhere else. I didn't accept the offer immediately. Not because I doubted Daniel. I trusted him. But after spending 6 years at Brightcore, I had learned not to make career decisions based on emotions. I need to think about it, I said. Daniel smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. You were. The best leaders don't jump at the first opportunity. He slid a business card across the table. When you're ready, call me. For the next 2 weeks, I went back to work as if nothing had happened. I completed every assignment in my job description. Nothing more. The department continued struggling. Not because people were lazy. Quite the opposite. Everyone was working harder than ever. The problem was that the systems had been built around one person doing far more than one job. And that person had finally stopped. Ethan was usually the first one in the office and one of the last to leave. More than once I noticed him eating lunch at his desk while trying to answer emails, review reports, and prepare for executive meetings. One evening as I was packing my bag, he looked over at me. Can I ask you something? Sure. How did you keep up with all of this? I smiled. I didn't. He frowned. What do you mean? I was constantly exhausted. He looked around the nearly empty office. I thought becoming manager would mean making decisions. It should. But I'm spending every day reacting to problems. Exactly. He leaned back in his chair. I owe you another apology. You don't owe me anything. I do. He sighed. I thought experience was something you could learn in a few weeks. And now I understand why everyone came to you first. There wasn't any resentment in his voice anymore. Only respect. Ironically, the person who had taken the promotion understood my value far better than the manager who had denied it. 3 days later, Daniel called. The board loved your resume. They've already seen it? I may have sent it before asking. I laughed. Confident. I've worked with you. When do they want to meet? Tomorrow morning. The interview lasted almost 3 hours. Unlike every interview I'd had before, nobody asked generic questions. Instead, they asked about real business problems. How would you scale operations after doubling the customer base? How would you redesign reporting for multiple warehouses? How would you reduce employee turnover without increasing payroll? For every question, I spoke from experience. Not theory. Experience. By the end of the meeting, the CEO smiled. I have one final question. Of course. How soon could you start? I couldn't stop smiling. I wasn't expecting that. We're not interested in interviewing 10 more candidates. He closed his notebook. We're interested in hiring the right one. The official offer arrived the next afternoon. Director of Operations. A leadership team reporting directly to me. A salary nearly 40% higher than what I was earning. Annual performance bonuses. Professional development budget. Most importantly, authority that matched responsibility. No more unofficial leadership. No more empty promises. No more waiting. I signed the contract that evening. The following Monday, I requested a meeting with Michael. He looked unusually relaxed as I entered his office. What can I do for you? I placed an envelope on his desk. He opened it. His smile disappeared. You're resigning? Yes. His eyes moved back to the letter. You've given 4 weeks' notice. I wanted to leave professionally. He leaned back slowly. Is this because of the promotion? No. Then why? Because I finally accepted that this company and I want different things. He folded the letter carefully. Can I ask where you're going? I've accepted a director of operations position. His eyebrows lifted. Director? Yes. There was a long silence. Finally he spoke. I didn't realize you were looking. I wasn't. Until I realized my career wasn't moving. He sighed heavily. We can discuss your future here. I smiled politely. We've been discussing my future for 3 years. This time is different. Is it? We can promote you. I couldn't help noticing his choice of words. Not we wanted to promote you. Not we plan to promote you. We can. Only now. After I had decided to leave. I'm grateful for the offer, I said calmly. But I already accepted another one. We can match the salary. It isn't about salary. We can change your title. It isn't about the title. He looked genuinely confused. Then what is it about? I answered without hesitation. It's about trust. Word spread through the office before lunch. People stopped by my desk throughout the afternoon. Some wished me luck. Some admitted they had been expecting it. Others quietly confessed they had already started updating their own resumes. Even Hannah smiled. I was wondering how long you'd stay. I stayed longer than I should have. She nodded. I think everyone knew that except Michael. On my final day, Ethan knocked gently on my desk. I wanted to give you something. He handed me a notebook. Inside were pages of handwritten notes. Every lesson we'd discussed. Every process I'd explained. On the first page he'd written one sentence. Thank you for teaching me what leadership actually looks like. I looked up. You didn't have to do this. I know. He smiled. But I wanted you to know something. What? The promotion wasn't the mistake. I waited. The mistake was giving your responsibilities to everyone. Except you. For the first time since all of this had started, I felt completely at peace. 6 months later, I hardly recognized my life. My new company had grown faster than anyone predicted. We hired talented people instead of overloading existing ones. When someone consistently performed above their role, we promoted them. Not because they threatened to leave. Because they'd earned it. One Friday afternoon, while reviewing quarterly reports, my assistant knocked on my office door. You have a visitor. I looked up. Standing in the hallway was Hannah. Coffee in one hand, a folder in the other. You weren't kidding about hiring good people, she said. I laughed. You came. I finally had enough. I stood and shook her hand. Welcome to the team. As we walked toward the conference room, she looked around the office. It feels different here. It is. Why? I smiled. Because nobody has to prove they're valuable after they've already proven it. That lesson had taken me 6 years to learn. It only took one decision to finally live by it.